In this episode, we head east out of New Mexico into Texas, where we will spend 11 days at 3 RV parks before heading into Louisiana. Hi, I'm Dave Atkinson, and welcome to Life on the Strait. Thank you for watching, and if you'd like to follow our 2-year journey as it unfolds, please consider subscribing, which is free. As we were leaving town the next morning, we first filled G2 with propane and gas, and then headed out, continuing east on US 62, the same highway that brought us into town. Our destination was San Angelo, Texas, which is about 270 miles away. We were officially leaving the west and moving into the south. About halfway to the border with Texas, and that would be about 70 miles from Carlsbad, we took a right on State Route 176. Like the other day when we were driving towards Carlsbad, this day featured scenery about as flat and desolate as anything we had seen yet, but with one huge exception: oil rigs and later windmills in all directions as far as the eye could see. Little oasis towns like Eunice, New Mexico, and Andrews, Texas, who in their right mind would want to live there? I don't know if there's any bad blood going on between New Mexico and Texas, but a New Mexico landfill snugs right up to the border, and a Texas waste control company sits on the other side. About 2/3 of the way to our destination, we rolled into the town of Big Spring, Texas, which is about the size of Silverdale, as close to our old home in Kingston. As we passed the Dairy Queen, I found a street to pull G2 over next to the curb, and I walked about a block to DQ to grab us some lunch. This was my first experience with sweet tea. Think iced tea with a ton of sugar. Sweet tea was one of their fountain beverages, and it was popular with their customers. In Big Spring, we caught US 87, which dropped us down into San Angelo and our destination for the next 3 nights, Spring Creek Marina and RV Park. During our stay, we didn't do much except eat out at a Texas Roadhouse, and that was my first ever deep-fried pickle, get coffee at Starbucks, get groceries and Amy's meds at Walmart, and watch TV. The weather was too cold, with icicles hanging off G2 in the mornings. One day when we were headed into town, a large group of wild turkeys was running around the entrance to the RV park. This is where we first encountered a road sign that we weren't familiar with. F.M. followed by a number, all within a white square. This is known as a farm to market, also a ranch to market road, which is a better quality state highway that farmers and ranchers use to transport products to market towns or distribution centers. Meanwhile, Buzzie was enjoying his new title, Senior Laundry Engineer. Amy would toss our still warm laundry from the dryer onto the bed, and Buzzie would bury himself in it, just thoroughly enjoying himself. Being in the coach for a few days allowed us more time to play with him, tossing his favorite red fuzzy ball around for him to chase and watching him play with his toy mice. Dr. Green gave him a new lease on life, and Buzzie was taking full advantage of it. We were already getting on the schedule of the Camping World in Kissimmee, Florida, which is where we would be staying for a month during our visit to Disney World and other attractions. In addition to a scheduled service for our generator, and that was mainly oil and filter change, we wanted them to look at the slide out for the living room sofa. When we'd been traveling, it had been making an annoying squeaking noise right above and behind where Amy was sitting, a noise that was worse when the sun was shining on that side of G2 well underway. We also had some of that slide out's internal trim come in screwed, or in the case of the upper corner wooden caps, one which completely fell off. Below the kitchen sink was a strap which held the two pieces of countertop material that inserted over the sink in case we need more counter space, and the screw that held the strap in place had pulled out of the rather flimsy material that it had been screwed into, so that needed fixing as well. If memory serves, we were also having repeated problems with cabinet doors above the kitchen counter, where the screws had pulled out of the surface and where no amount of tightening would help. On Friday, March 6th, we departed San Angelo for a 222-mile drive to Traveler's World Carefree RV Resort in San Antonio. As we entered San Antonio from the north, we pulled off the freeway to get some gas at a Costco store. As we departed the parking lot, there had been some road construction going on out on the street that we were exiting onto, and they had concrete barricades and cones all placed. I remember making that right-hand turn out into the street. G2 and the Honda barely cleared everything, and luckily a driver coming up on our left stopped to let us swing wide into their lane. Otherwise, I think we would have been stuck. Basically, we got lucky. I was also thankful for the reviews that I had read about the RV park we were heading to. If left to Google Maps, we would be approaching the park from the north, but the park reviews warned drivers about a low bridge with only 11 feet 3 inches of clearance. And remember, G2 required 12 feet 6 inches. We drove past the park and took the next exit from Interstate 35 and then approached the park from the south. We would call this place home for the next week. Checking in at the front desk was a tad unusual. The park's water pressure was so high that without a regulator, you'd likely blow out your rig's water lines, and wouldn't you know it, they had regulators for sale. Fortunately, I had recently bought a good one in Mesa. They also had a new kind of soda pop for sale, Big Red. That's the name that Amy gave her truck with a vanity plate to boot, so we just had to buy a can. Nothing to write home about. The campsites were nice and big with gravel to park on, but a large concrete pad right out by the door and plenty of lawn and trees. All the interior roads were asphalt. One of the features of this park that it was located right on the San Antonio River and a parallel running river walk. This was the same river walk that downtown San Antonio was famous for. Our park was less than 4 miles from the Alamo, which is in the heart of the downtown district and only a short walk from the river walk. Our park was also a short drive away from shopping and restaurants, so we treated ourselves to dinner at the Texas Roadhouse and picked up a few items at Walmart. When we returned to G2, I started filling in the blanks of where our next campgrounds would be. That night I reserved campsites in Lafayette, Louisiana, Kissimmee, Florida, and that would be for Disney World, and Marathon, Florida, which is in the Florida Keys. We had a lot of fun the next day in downtown San Antonio. The San Antonio River flows through the downtown area, but they diverted a loop and then a T of water towards the Alamo and Hemisphere Park, which was the site of the 1968 World's Fair. When people talk about the Riverwalk, it is this later section that they are probably referring to. The Riverwalk is below street level, and there are stairs everywhere to and from the streets above. There are restaurants and shops all along the river, with pedestrian bridges crossing over every so often, and river barges with passengers floating on by. You see waterfalls, flowers, waterfowl. It is just a fantastic place for tourists to visit. In 1987, I had come here on a business trip for the phone company, but Amy never had seen it before. To me, it looked like nothing had changed over almost 3 decades. If you've never been to San Antonio, you might be surprised to find that the site of the Alamo is right in the heart of downtown, just a short walk from the Riverwalk. In 1836, the Battle of the Alamo was fought between February 23rd and March 6th. Here we were on Saturday, March 7th, and as luck would have it, a huge crowd had gathered around the Alamo to watch a reenactment of the battle. The players were all in costume, some dressed like the Texans and others like the Mexican forces of Santa Anna. It was loud, with musket and cannon fire going off. Today, the site takes up several acres, an entire city block. We toured the Alamo Church, museum, walked the grounds, and picked up some postcards in a huge gift shop. It was busy and we spent quite a bit of time standing in line, but that was okay. After grabbing some lunch, we walked over to the old World's Fair site and rode to the top of the Tower of Americas, San Antonio's version of Seattle's Space Needle. Like the Space Needle, it had a revolving restaurant near the top, plus an observation deck. The tower stands at 750 feet, which is taller than the Space Needle, but the tower's needle is longer than the needle's needle. Looking down, we could see the Alamo Dome on the other side of Interstate 37, which is where the NBA's Spurs used to play. Plus, we got a great view of the second largest city in Texas behind Houston, with a population of over 1.4 million people, and that's 2.5 million in the greater metro area. One annoyance so far on our adventure was paying ATM fees wherever we wanted to take out some cash from our KeyBank checking account. We quickly discovered that KeyBank was more of a regional than a national bank. Our Visa card was through Chase Bank, and I liked the web interface as well as the layouts of the statements. And by adding a Chase checking account, it would appear alongside the Visa account, making it very easy to use while not having to learn a new system. More important, Chase was a national bank, so we could easily find a Chase ATM wherever we traveled and get to our cash fee-free. We had planned on doing this for a few weeks and had stopped writing checks against our KeyBank account. So while we were in San Antonio, we were able to write one final check to close out the account and open a new Chase account. Unfortunately, we forgot all about opening the new Chase account with our living trust as its owner, and instead, it was put in Amy's and my names. Fixing that mistake would bite us weeks later in Florida. On March 10th, we went for a long walk on the section of the Riverwalk that passed by our RV park. We really enjoyed the hike, and there were birds and turtles in or on the river. Unfortunately for Amy, there were also insects in the air, and one flew right into her head, briefly getting caught in the space between her glasses and her eyeball. The bug didn't care for all of that and bit her. By the time that we pulled out of San Antonio a few days later, one side of her face had swollen up. Thankfully, the swelling later subsided. Regarding our Idaho property that we were looking to sell, our broker presented us with an offer from a client of his, one who owns quite a few commercial property pieces throughout northern Idaho, and who used our broker to manage them for him. It was less than what we were asking, but was an all-cash offer. We made a counteroffer that was mostly accepted, and we moved on to what is called in the business mutual acceptance. 2 days later, we drove to the northeast part of town to shop at Costco and fill up the Honda's gas tank. On the way back home, we found an H-E-B store, which was a big name in this part of the country, called Central Market. It actually reminded us of our Central Market that we left behind in Paulsbo, as it had a huge selection of just about everything, including something we had never seen in the flower shop section of a supermarket before: dried cotton branches with the balls of cotton attached. On the 13th, we said goodbye to San Antonio and drove 227 miles due east on Interstate 10 towards Houston, and a little bit beyond to the Houston East RV Resort in the suburb of Baytown. The drive was simply horrible, with nothing but semi-trucks following each other way too close for comfort. If we got behind a slowpoke, we were basically stuck there for a long time until some space finally became available and we could pass them on the left. Just so you know, G2 isn't exactly the kind of vehicle that passes anything in a hurry, so we required a lot of space. Making matters worse, the freeway was only 2 lanes and the road surface was jarringly poor. Our route took us through the heart of Texas's largest city, and I was appreciating how Texas paints colorful directional signs right on the roadway. If you're driving along and suddenly big colorful Interstate 10 shields on the highway tell you the lane you should be in if you are taking an exit or staying put. In the heart of the city, there were off-ramps going in all directions to the left and right, but I made it into Houston and out the other side successfully. Our night in Baytown was on par with staying in a Walmart parking lot. Right at the entrance to the campground was a frontage road and then the freeway. Needless to say, the highway noise didn't make for a sound night of sleep. Once we got G2 connected and everything all set up, I was able to secure a campground for our future stop in Alabama. We were only passing through Houston, so we had no time for sightseeing. What little we did see was that Houston is an oil town with refineries and big signs of all the oil giants displayed here and there. Plus, it had that Bakersfield-like oil smell to it. No thank you. Next time, we continue our eastward push out of Texas into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama.